to go. So, Steve Vai, man, what do you say about going to see the old boss, huh? At the Staples Center.
He should have jumped on stage.
That's when they should have done Yankee Rose, right?
That's right.
That's
yep,
the
you read
move.
my mind.
That's the
right
move
there.
right there. So now, as we mentioned, Dave's House of Blues residency has been postponed. And he sent out a note, and it said here, HOB, Las Vegas, postponed. And now, a word from Dave. Somebody get me a doctor. Just kidding. Take your whiskey home. Not kidding. Love, Dave. And he sent that out over social media, which I thought was hysterical. I mean, the guy's entertaining even in a little note. What do you think, Dave?
Classic Dave.
Classic Dave. Classic Dave. Unfortunately, Mr. Hagar got his tour halted, too. I mean, everybody's tour is halted, but he had to pull out of the South American tour for the Circle, and I know these guys were really working hard and looking forward to this, but unfortunately, he is not going to be going to South America anytime soon. However, Sammy is continuing to follow in David Lee Roth's footsteps, because why? He's getting his own Vegas residency. Well, you know, when you buy a toy for one kid, you gotta buy a toy for the other kid. So, you know how that old saying goes. So
back to Vegas we go.
Oh, yeah, unbelievable. So, at the Stratz Celestia tent is going to start up in June, apparently, if things are still rolling. It's going to be a warm-up for the summer tour, which kicks off July 9th in West Palm Beach, Florida. And this is a quote from Sam. He says, I want to create the ultimate environment where I can throw the ultimate party, like I have done in Cabo for 30 years on my birthday, but another time a year in Las Vegas, which is the real party capital of the world. And he's opening it up an invitation like he does in Cabo for all kinds of different musicians who are in town to stop down and jam and play a song or two. What do you think of this, Dave? Hagar in Vegas.
You know, it doesn't really surprise me all that much. I mean, he's always looking to try something new.
Right.
He's got his restaurant in Vegas.
Right.
So this just seems a natural extension. I don't know if Roth's had anything to do with it, but there's a lot of artists doing residencies out in Vegas. So he's just hopping on the bandwagon at this point. I mean, look, more power to him. He could do live shows regularly, and he doesn't have to pack his bags and play here and then play there and then play somewhere else.
Right.
It's a sweet deal if you can get it.
Yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth. And he could always swing in and swing out. I mean, you never know. So we'll see what comes of that. And speaking of Mr. Hagar, the Red Rocker showed up at the Eddie Money Tribute Show, which took place on February 20th at the Saban Theater. And that was in Beverly Hills, California. And Sammy Hagar came on and sang Shakin'. And guess who joined him on stage, Dave, to sing and play tambourine?
Who joined?
Take a guess. Take a guess. Very special guest.
Rick Springfield.
Well, that would be a good guess, because Rick was on the bill. But it was an even more special guest than that. It was the one and only Mrs. Money.
Oh.
She joined him on stage, and she was shaking on stage with Sammy. And then she actually asked Sam if he would consider making a rock and roll road trip episode out of the show. And Sammy had such a great time. It's going to be a two-parter. That's really kind of cool. And the big news that came out of this show, in addition to Sammy singing Shakin', which I thought was a great song for Sammy, James Hetfield, who just got out of rehab from Metallica, did an acoustic version of Baby Hold On, if you could actually picture that, but it was good. James came up and did that and wowed everybody and got a lot of clicks on YouTube. Sammy said everybody was there for the right reasons and there were no egos. Backstage was like a big family reunion. I'm sure Eddie would have approved. So what do you make of that, Dave? Sammy on stage with Mrs. Money.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's Sammy. Because Sammy helped put that together, right?
I think he had something to do with it. There was a bunch of people on that bill. It was like Sammy. It was, like you said before, it was Rick Springfield, John Waite, Mickey Thomas of Starship, George Thorogood was on the bill. Like I said, James Hetfield of Metallica joined in, and Louis Anderson hosted, and it was supposedly a really nice night. I would have loved to have seen it. Unfortunately, it was only on Access TV, which you could only get in Nebraska. Yeah, exactly. So I wonder what Mr. Money would think about this. What do you think?
Oh, here we go.
What? What?
Oh, I thought there was going to be an Eddie Money impersonation and shtick going on.
Oh, yeah, well, why would I do something like that? All right, come on.
No, but seriously, he totally would have approved. Absolutely. I mean, it was a nice.
Yeah.
They came to celebrate his music and his memory, and I mean, what more could you ask, right?
That actually would be a cool live album. You know what I mean? Because I know Eddie Money used to do a lot of charity work. So if they threw a live album together and had that sold for the charity that Eddie does, he used to do a lot of children's hospital stuff. That would be great.
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
a good thought.
Absolutely.
It must be tougher to do things like that with streaming media and stuff like that, unless you can convince the streaming entity to give a portion of the money to charity.
I don't know. Maybe. You never know.
I don't know how it works. But that is a very cool idea.
Yeah, it would be. I think about it. What a nice CD that would be. That's cool. So now also, this was sort of a strange piece of Van Halen news. This came out of nowhere. So Nuno Bettencourt, the guitarist for Extreme. Obviously Extreme, fronted by Gary Cherone, third singer of Van Halen. All right. So Nuno, who is inspired up the wazoo by Eddie Van Halen, Eddie, his god, right? So he was on with Eddie Trunk on Eddie's show, and they got around to talking about Gary being in Van Halen. And this was sort of really revealing. So Nuno says, listen to what he says. Gary was not the biggest Van Halen fan. He was a Who guy, Zeppelin, Queen, me and Pat, meaning Pat Badger, the bassist for Extreme, were obsessed with Van Halen stuff. We used to play it at soundcheck, and Gary wouldn't know it, and he'd walk off the stage. Pat would take the lead vocals, and we'd jam. It was kind of ironic that Gary ended up in Van Halen. And then he went on to talk about how he went to visit 5150 while they were recording Van Halen 3, and it was all good. And then he talked about meeting Eddie back in 1992 when he was producing Dweezil Zappa's Confessions album, and Dweezil said he had to make a quick stop on the way to the studio to pick up a guitar at a rehearsal studio, and then he walked in, and Van Halen was playing. So Eddie came over, and he said, kissed Nuno on the lips, which I thought was very bizarre. He says, we always used to reference Van Halen 1 and Van Halen 2 for sound. He says, that's what we strived for. He used to look at Eddie's rig with absolute amazement, and how does he get the sound? How does he get the sound? So when he walked into the rehearsal studio, and Dweezil sort of did this as a nice surprise for Nuno because he knew he was such a big fan, Eddie took his guitar and he put it on Nuno, and he says, hey, play something. I want to check out this pedal. So he's on the ground fiddling with the pedal. He said Nuno said he was so frozen because he had Eddie's guitar on him and he was in front of Eddie Van Halen, and then Eddie was asking him to play, so he didn't know what to do. So he just started playing the solo for Get the Funk Out, the Extreme song, and then when he started doing the tapping like Eddie, he says, none of that silly stuff here. The funny reference to that was, in that month's Guitar World, Nuno had said that he feels silly tapping because it's such an Eddie Van Halen move that when he does it, he actually feels silly. So Eddie had read that article and made reference by saying none of that silly stuff here, which is kind of funny. And then he also sort of mentioned that Gary was over his house and Eddie stopped by, and another reference about Gary hanging out with Eddie. So I don't know what the hell is going on there, but something is brewing. I'm telling you, something is brewing.
Those were some cool stories from Nuno. I hadn't heard a lot of those before.
Yeah.
I did know that Gary was not the Van Halen fan in the band.
The other guys are obsessed with Van Halen.
Well, that was Nuno. I read before that Nuno was the Van Halen
Nuno
fan.
and Gary, Pat, both of
them. Gary was not, and that, it was the ultimate irony that Gary was the guy who got the gig in the band.
Right, exactly. So now, if you guys remember, we had a podcast guest who is a film director by the name of Branford Thompson, and he had the Lost Weekend short film. Well, that is now out and free to watch on YouTube, and it's a 14-minute documentary about the Lost Weekend MTV contest from 1984. Kurt Jeffries, the winner, and his best friend there were featured in the documentary. And there's a bit of a drama that surrounds it. This is spoilers here, so if you want to go watch, it's not that big a deal, to be honest. They were just saying that years earlier, that Kurt had had a sort of an accident where he fell and he had a blood clot in his brain and he really injured himself bad and he almost died. But he recovered from that, but they said that the kind of drinking he was doing with the MTV thing, he could have really thrown himself back into a coma. He said, I thought I was indestructible and I was a kid and this and that, and it gets like a little dramatic there for a while, which is interesting. I didn't expect that. But I have to say, one thing I thought that was a little surprising was everything that you see in here is pretty much what you've already seen on MTV. There wasn't any real extra stuff, right, Dave?
No, there wasn't, but it was in the best quality I've ever seen.
Yes, it was, and it was put all together. Yeah.
Right. I wish it had been a little longer.
Yeah.
The whole thing was like, what, 14 minutes or something like that?
And it was well filmed, and Bradford did a really nice job. I do wish it was longer. I wish there was more to it. Yeah, there was definitely some stuff I would have loved to have seen. But I think, there must be so much extra tape lying around. I'm sure he didn't have access to it, but...
Well, I think he went looking, and he did find some MTV people who had the original tapes, which is why the quality is where it is.
Yeah.
But if there's anything extra on that, I mean, who the heck knows where it is?
Yeah. I have to say, Eddie Trunk has mentioned this. This really, really, really shocks me in the digital world that we live in. I cannot believe that with all the streaming services we have, that MTV hasn't opened up a channel that just plays all of their archival material. They have so much stuff. It's unbelievable. I can't believe that they haven't done it yet. I mean, Viacom owns, concerts and unplugged and interviews and documentaries and videos. It's such an easy thing to do, to put it up and have it all up there. And oh my God! And Ed talks.
Well, maybe they feel there's no market for it. Otherwise they would still have a cable channel.
You know what? There is a total market for it. Do you have any idea how popular that would be? It would be unbelievable. The nostalgia is so hot right now, and people would love that shit. Please. I literally almost cry when I see it because it reminds me of a simpler time in our world. So now listen to this. Earlier today, actually, or last night, or I think it was today, Janie came out on social media and announced her favorite Van Halen song because people have been asking her. She said, for those who have asked, this is my favorite Van Halen song. Who knew you could swing dance to it? She plays the song, and she starts swing dancing with her partner to DOA, of all Van Halen songs. So I give her to have good taste in Van Halen songs, because that's one of my favorites. But holy crap, there she is swing dancing with a partner to DOA, if you could believe that.
That's impressive. I gotta give her props for that.
I know.
You don't see that every day.
Very true, very true. Now, this last piece of news is, I don't know, I'm so hesitant to even say this because I don't know where the hell we're going to be in this world. So we're supposed to announce Van Halen Bash, which would be the 4th Van Halen Bash, and it was set for May 16th at the Monk Hunk Opera House with Romeo Delight, the ultimate Van Halen tribute band. And they were going to do a special for us where we are going to have our listeners vote 5 of the top Van Halen songs they want to hear them play. And the 5 that win are the ones they're going to add to their set list, which I thought was a fun little thing for this year. But I don't know what's going to happen because, as everybody knows who is listening to this, all concerts and everything has been halted. So May 16th, although it's, almost 2 months away, a little less than 2 months away, who the hell knows where the hell we're going to be? So I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll have it at some point, but we might have to reschedule that date. We've actually been working on getting this venue for years, and Buddy finally got it. We were all excited because it's a really nice venue with really good sound and good seating and everything, and I don't know where we're going to be, so I feel a little like, wah, 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 about announcing that. But what am I going to do? I mean, everything's on goddamn lockdown.
Well, let's see where we are next month, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, exactly. And that wraps up Van Halen news.
And that's the way it is. Good night.
And boy, do we have a big entree for you this month. We are celebrating the 25th anniversary of Van Halen's